Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Man Cave Stuff by Jackbox Creations. In this episode, we're going to be taking a 2012 NFL template. We're going to be turning it into a Nick Foles rookie jersey. Stay tuned. Before Nick Foles was the Pro Bowl MVP, NFC champion QB who beat Tom Brady to win Super Bowl 52 and claim Super Bowl MVP, he was just a shaggy-haired rookie. And in 2012, that rookie led a last-second come-from-behind win against the Bucs after being sacked 6 times. A Bucs defense that had Gerald McCoy, Rondé Barber, Levante David, and Michael Bennett. Foles passed for 381 yards with 3 touchdowns. It was his first biggest win in the NFL. Alright, so I recently picked up an autographed Sam Bradford jersey. This was the first Nike template that the Eagles wore, starting in 2012. This one still has tags attached to it. $250 is the retail price. Sam Bradford with his autograph. So it didn't come with a certificate of authenticity, so honestly, who knows? Sam Bradford, I mean, he wasn't a bad NFL QB, but this could be sacrificed for a Nick Foles rookie jersey, is all I'm saying. Like we did before with the Seth Joyner jersey, I'm going to strip everything off. I'm going to give it a good clean. I mean, honestly, this hasn't been worn. I found in one of the arms a pin, which tells me this was probably a display piece by whoever owned it before. And so it hasn't been worn, and so it should be a pretty easy strip and clean if need be. We'll add the new graphics to it, so let's get started. So to start off here, I have my remover tool, and I'm basically sifting through and pulling apart, if need be, the stitching. I usually begin with the underlayer, just so I don't affect the top layer, and that's strictly in consideration of the cosmetics of the jersey. If I just happen to slip with the seam ripper and affect the jersey itself, at least if I'm working underneath it, you're not going to see it necessarily. Here I'm working on the front number, the chest number. This jersey most likely was a custom. What happens with the custom jerseys, I've noticed, is a lot of times they'll have these pre-created numbers, and they'll basically sew the top few layers and then sew on the bottom layer to the jersey itself, which is basically what I'm going to do today. So I've now removed all of the pieces, and as you can see, what is left behind are the holes that were sewn into the top layer. And so in doing our research, I actually kind of lucked out. One of the auction houses had the jersey that I'm actually mimicking in this video. Here's that originally in 2012, they used the stacked method. I have decided, upon looking at some of the retail authentics, even though it's going to be a little more difficult, I think it's going to look better, and we're gonna go with a kiss cut for our jersey today. So what I've done here is I've actually done some tracing, basically, and I've created the different layers for the name on the back for the Foles. And the base layer, of course, is midnight green, with the top layer being the black. Here, as you'll see, I have the different numbers that I have pre-created. And I just went ahead and I took the number 9. I'm going to measure the Sam Bradford jersey numbers that are already on there, and I'll just size them and cut them accordingly. Here we have that number 9 with the different layers. As you'll see, the base layer being the green, the mid layer is the gray, and of course the top layer is the black. Now that the numbers have all been cut, we're ready to proceed in creating our jersey. So we're going to start off with the sewing process. Here I'm doing the gray, which is the mid layer, slowly taking the turns as need be, speeding up where I can, but just being very careful and working on this zigzag stitch. I use the zigzag stitch to keep the material itself from coming apart and fraying, which eventually it will do, but the zigzag keeps it in place for as long as possible. For the nameplate, what I have here is the serger machine. After I took apart an old Eagles jersey, I basically measured and I drew lines, and I'm creating now the template where the numbers will go on. This is the finished nameplate with the serged edges. I'm going to be adding this adhesive backing just to give it a little stiffness, to give it some weight, plus it'll help adhere to the jersey itself. Now I've put on the bottom layer, which is the green for the folds on the back of the nameplate, and I'm heat pressing it at about 332 degrees. I've cut out the black layer, which is the final layer for the name, and I'm heat pressing that also. Next, we're going to be doing that single stitch that we were talking about before. Basically, I'm sewing down the black layer, which will in turn sew down the green, and we'll have a final product after I'm done stitching. While I was preparing to sew down this layer, I basically had to measure where the needle is going to drop on both sides of the black border to make sure that the zigzag didn't cut too much into the green material and didn't zigzag out too much into the white itself. In some areas you can't really help it, but you do your best. And here is the finished Foles nameplate. Next, we're going to place it on the back of the jersey, and I'm going to take my ruler, and as best I can, I'm going to try to make sure that it's centered, making sure that it's equal on both sides before I heat press the plate. So next we're moving on to the numbers. I'll start with the back number and then moving on to the front number. Although you can see the outline of the number 7 after we removed it. Remember, we said before that there are going to be some holes left by the number that was previously on there. And that's going to be okay, because the heating process, for the most part, should take care of some of those holes, on top of the fact that we're covering them with the new numbers. For the shoulder numbers, or the TV numbers, I'm going to be using what's called a Teflon pillow. And this pillow is made of the same material as our Teflon sheet. It is heat resistant, so it's not going to scorch or affect the material that we're dealing with. And it's basically going to push out the material enough that I can place the number on it and press down. And it won't give me any wrinkles or any issues underneath. with the fabric underneath it. So next we're gonna, after heat pressing the numbers, next we're gonna sew down that final layer. So this is gonna be our third stitch, which will be a black zigzag, and we're gonna try to get it as tight as we can around the number. I tried to go slow around certain parts, and of course, in areas where there's just more material, I can speed it up a little more. But the key is to try to keep that needle from zigzagging too much into the white material, which would make it very noticeable. Here I'm slowly working around the edges. The eagle's numbers have a lot of curves to them, which makes them a little tougher to sew down. But I take it slow, and for the most part it works out well. What I'll end up having to do once I'm done with all of the layers is I'll take a pair of scissors. I picked up a small pair of shears, and I'll clean up some of the extra hairs and some of the extra material left by the twill. That is some of the frayed material. As you can kind of see, there's a few pieces of material sticking up. Moving on to the nameplate, after we heat pressed the plate onto the jersey, it was pretty much set. If we just left it as it was, it'd probably be fine. But you know, we want to make this as authentic as possible, so we're going to sew it down. So I'm going to do a straight stitch, and I'm just going to basically go around the edges in the middle of that serging that we had done before with the serger machine. One of the really unique features about this Foles jersey in that game, from what I had seen, was the Hall of Fame patch that both of the teams wore. Foles had this great game, and you guys know how much I love patches, so it just kind of went hand in glove. I'll be adding this Hall of Fame anniversary patch. Now, this patch in particular already had the adhesive on the back of it, so all I'll have to do is line it up. I'm going to place a piece of my Teflon material down, and my iron is already warmed up, so I'm going to press that down, and that should keep it in place. But we want to make it as authentic as possible, like we said before. I'm going to do a zigzag stitch, and we're going to sew around it.
Foles leads, and it's in there, touchdown to Jeremy McClain, and the Eagles will win.
Alright guys, that's going to do it for this episode. I am incredibly happy with the way that this jersey turned out. I think the patch placement is right on. In the comments below, let me know, what was that one moment from that one player on your team? Maybe he was in his rookie season. You got that one player that has done something pretty spectacular. Let me know what that was. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Man Cave Stuff.